It's the Last Stand Podcast. And here's your host, Brian Custer.
That's right. It is the Last Stand. I'm Brian Custer. We bring you some of the biggest names in the sport. And in the 130-pound division, hey, there's no bigger name than the champ himself. He is the WBO Super Featherweight Champion of the world, known as Semper Fi. He's Jamel Herring. Champ, welcome to the Last Stand.
Hey, it's good to be on, Brian. Good to be speaking with you again, man. It's good so I'm happy. I'm in a good mood.
Hey, it's been a long time, so it's great that it has been a long time, man. You listen, you coming off, what a victory. A 6-round stoppage over Carl Frampton. You not only stop him, you basically ended his career. I mean, he retires right after the fight. What did that victory mean to you, mean to your career?
Hands down the biggest victory of my career, for starters. But overall, it meant a lot because, you know, coming up from my own career, I got to watch the fights with him between Santa Cruz, you know, the first 2 fights. And, you know, just to have this to fight a champion that, you know, who's won 3 world titles in 2 weight classes and actually have a win over, not only a win over him, but a spectacular win. It meant a lot. It meant more than just winning the title. It solidified me as a legitimate world champion in a pretty much stacked division.
How much did it motivate you? How much did it bother you coming into the fight? Because it was almost as if people were doubting you going into that fight.
Oh, yeah, that was definitely the motivation. The motivation was to prove that I'm still here, despite of everything that I've been through in my past. Like, Brian, you've seen me come up in the rankings. Like, I've been through the ups and downs, and I never gave up on myself. But I had to prove it again that, you know, that a setback or whatever you may want to call it doesn't define who I am in or out the ring. So that was the motivation. Instead of you know, being upset about things that were said or happened, I just took it as motivation each and every day in that gym, and I used it, you know, to get to the fight.
You know, I think it's interesting you say that because, you know, if it was fairly recently, you put out a tweet on social media and you said, quote, "You can't satisfy everyone and everybody won't side with your opinion. This is why of late I've taken things with a grain of salt. Life is good." Tell me what you meant by that.
I mean, like, even win or lose, people were still gonna find something to complain about or say. But you know, I'm very grateful, of course, for the ones that have stuck and, you know, stayed by me through the ups and downs and supported me and you know, complimented me on my victory. But at the same time, with boxing, you know, Brian, with boxing, you won't satisfy everybody out there. So you gotta just live your life and just continue pushing forward and doing what's best for you. I mean, even, you know, the great Floyd Mayweather, who's retired, he still gets criticized, and the man is not even getting ready for a fight, but they still judge and criticize what he's done in the past. So I look at things like that and just say, you know what, I'm just happy with what I've accomplished so far, and I'm just going to continue going forward. But I'm gonna do it my way.
That's great. That's great. Listen, what do you think that win said to the 130-pound division when it comes to Jamel Herring?
That I'm still a threat, and I'm still hungry. And for me, I still fight as if I'm trying to fight for something. I'm not satisfied with just being the champion. And like I said, even at 35, I still feel like I still have a lot to prove. And like the way if I continue to perform that way, I know I can still go far, you know, with my career in the division. So, but, you know, like I said, I'm just glad that, for more importantly, that people have taken notice now, and the people are speaking. Like, it's funny how things play out. A few months ago, I was being written off again, but then now it's like, oh wait, well, you know, he can make some big fights, and, you know, he's a serious guy, you know, to reckon with. So, I mean, that, like I said, I'm just enjoying the moment, but I'm just glad that for least that I'm getting positive reviews and you know, a lot of love and respect.
So what's next for you? You know, I hear that your team has been working on your next opponent. What can you tell us?
I mean, we all know that Shakur is my mentor. Shakur Stevenson, you know, is a good guy. Good fighter, good friend of mine. Yesterday we had some little back and forth on Twitter, but nothing crazy. And that's just a respect, a mutual respect thing between me and Shakur. But for me, Brian, like I said, I mean, I want to continue to go after the champions. I mean, because I looked at even through the buildup, like I said it from the buildup from Frampton. I always been a fan of Frampton's. From when he fought Warrington, Donito, just like I said, with Leo. I always been a fan, but I seen what he was fighting for even against me. You know, he was fighting for his own legacy. And that kind of actually rubbed off on me to where I was motivated to fight for mine as well. And we all know we've seen that Oscar Valdez has called me out. You know what I mean? And he has a title. And I just felt like that's the most logical and the best thing for me to do in terms of my career-wise. I mean, Shakur it's not a bad fight either, but there's more benefits coming with fighting a guy like Oscar Valdez because it could be of unification. He has a WBC crown. Whoever you talk to, he's considered either the number one or number two guy in the division. And for me, like I always been that type of guy where, as a Marine at least, I want to continue to push myself. So why not keep going for the guys that are above me? That's how I look at it and go from there.
He just recently fought not too long ago. You just fought. When do you foresee this unification fight taking place?
Hey, you know me, bro. I'm not an A side or B side guy. So for starters, so when you say that, we could fight in September. You know that's big for boxing, especially for Mexican fanfare around the world. That's big for boxing. And me, I got cut, but you can't even tell. And I'm just a worker. I'm just ready to get back in the gym, to be honest with you. And whenever they want to do it, that's fine with me. But if we, like I said, I want to have a spectacular year to where not only we're I come back from a rough 2020, but if I win another fight, I guess especially against a great champion as Valdez, that has to put me, a guy like me of all people, in at least in the conversation of fighter of the year. That's what I'm going for. I'm not going for any no tune-ups. I don't want too long of a break. I don't want to fight anyone that people are not interested in seeing. I'd rather fight somebody that people actually have conversations. Well, Jamel can maybe lose to this guy, or Jamel I want to be in those fights. So that's where I'm at. So like I said, whenever his team wants to come to the table, and I know they express great interest in it, but you know how boxing works. We have to get something on paper at least first before anything is possible. But that's just what I want to do. I just want to go and have, I was already 2019 Ring Magazine's Comeback Fighter of the Year. Now I want to go for the Ring Magazine's Fighter of the Year award. And then, like I said, anything's possible, and that's just what I'm shooting for.
And you get Valdez. When would you see yourself moving up to 135?
I have unfinished business there. I was with you guys. I was over there. I have unfinished business there at 135, so I have to make my statement there as well. But I really was willing to move back up after the Frampton fight, but it was just that the Valdez fight was just so intriguing. It was like, I have an opportunity not only to become a two-time world champion, but also the lineal world champion. And in boxing, that's very rare. That's a rare feat to accomplish. So that's why I was looking at, willing to stay around a super featherweight for that fight. But if things don't play out my way, I always have a lot of opportunities at 135 pounds as well. I'm very accustomed to the weight class, so that's not an issue. And like I said, and that's what I mean. I just feel like I have a lot more in me to prove and to gain. So even if I get Valdez, after Valdez, I have no issue coming back to lightweight and making my statement and mark there.
Yeah, and I love when we have guys on. I always ask them this question. Listen, if it was up to you, give me your next two fights.
My next two fights, like I say, of course, Valdez would be one for sure. But for me, I'm not picky. Any one of the champions at super featherweight again or 135, that's for me. That's just me. Because like I said, right now I'm all about collecting as many titles as I possibly can and just stamping my mark in boxing.
Everyone looks at that lightweight division. Whether it's Teofimo, whether it's Ryan Garcia, whether it's Devin Haney, whether it's Tank Davis. I mean, and they say, yo, I got to have one of those guys. Is there one out of the four that you
funny? You know what's fun? I'm glad you brought. You know what's funny? Like literally just today and for the past couple of days, a name that I thought I would not hear because of how boxing is today, but I've heard even a matchup with Ryan Garcia popped up. That's crazy. So like for me, I'm like, you know what? If it happens, it happens. I'm not shying from it. You know, like I said, it's all about making good fights. But like I said, like I'm in a position right now where you know there's a lot of possibilities and a lot of doors open up for me, and I'm just grateful just to even be mentioned with all the good names of the sport of boxing. And like I said, if it happens, let's do it. But yeah, that's the name I heard has popped up. And I know, like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing Devin's next fight because Devin, I'm like I said, I love the new talents coming up, and Devin's done a great thing. He holds the WBC title. So yeah, I'm looking. You know me, bro. I'm always observing as a fan perspective, but at the same time, I'm a businessman too, and I'm a fighter. So I'm looking at everything that's going on around me.
Well, you did something a couple of years ago that you don't see a lot of fighters do. You see a lot of fighters, wanting to be signed with Al Haymon in the PBC, but you left Haymon, the PBC. You ended up signing with Top Rank. Tell us why.
Like I said, first and foremost, let me just say that I still got a lot of love and respect for Al Haymon. Al Haymon gave me an opportunity. Al Haymon was one of the first people to come to me when I was coming out of the Olympics, and he put me on a great platform. But it was never anything. Like I said, I'm glad we put that on there now. It was nothing, no bad blood or anything like that with me and the PBC family, because I still consider them as family because I got a lot of great friends over there at the PBC. But I left because of what was going on with the weight classes. Like Brian, my last fight over there was with Ladarius Miller at lightweight, and even though I thought I pulled that fight out, I just needed a change. And not so much a change with who was running my career, because like I said, Al was doing a great job of my career. It was just that the options at the time when I wanted to move down in weight, they weren't really there in terms of for opportunity. And that's really the only reason why I moved over, not only from like my my team in terms of my corner, but who was running my career, which was the Top Rank, because there was just more over there in terms of where I'm at in the division, the weight categories. But yeah, like I said, I got a lot of love and respect for Al. Like I still tune into PBC fights, and I don't I don't get to the whole thing of this side or that side of the street. Like, I mean, for instance, I train, and Bud Crawford's my brother, but at the same time, I work with Errol Spence as my living teammate. That's my bro. He checks on me all the time as well. So I always feel like if you show love and respect for those around you, you get the same respect and the same love and respect in return. And another thing I believe in this sport, you never want to burn bridges. So I still speak with Leonard Ellaby all the time. We've had great conversations, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, like I said, for me, I would have loved to stay with Al. It was just that at the time, like when I had to make a change for myself, because like I said, I just had suffered another defeat. It's like, with boxing, you better make some changes because the window of opportunity is very small, and I just had to do what I felt was best for me. But just recently I reached out to Sylvia and Brad, and I spoke with Sylvia because I heard about the passing of her father. But I got a lot of love over there for Sylvia and Brad because they did a lot for me. So I felt that was a good time for me to reach out, speak a couple of kind words, and they responded very well, and it just showed me that I didn't leave a bad taste in anyone's mouths. And even Brad reached out to me and said, congrats for all the success I had. And that's all really matters to me.
Great.
Like I said, at the end of the day, I want to, I don't want to be known just for what I've done in the ring. I want to leave a good mark on people, how they look at me and perceive me as a person.
And for those who don't know who he's talking about, when you talk about Sylvia and Brad Owens, work for the PBC and Al Haymon, and Sylvia's worked with Al Haymon for a long time. That's who the champ is talking about.
Hey, if you know Sylvia, you don't want to mess with Sylvia.
You know Al Haymon. Yeah, you
want to stay on Sylvia's good side. I'm telling you.
Absolutely. You're right about that.
Like I always talk to Sam with him as well. So, Sam Watson, that's my guy still. So, Sam, I've seen him. And he showed me a lot of love. He was happy for me. He was happy that I became a world champion. those are the things that matter to me the most, is keeping, good relationships with people that, seeing you started from the bottom and watch your career come up to where it's at now. So like I said, shout out to, Brad and Sylvia and Al and my man Sam. Much love to y'all.
And you changed trainers. You changed trainers from Mike Stafford to Brian McIntyre, Bomac, who obviously trains with Bud Crawford. Talk to us about, was that just part of the change when you made the change over to Top Rank?
It's funny. It's funny because me and Bo were actually willing to stay with the PBC and everything when I did change it. So it wasn't like it was a complete change of the rip. No, like it came to where, okay, I needed to change in my corner. And I love Mike, but at the time I just felt that it wasn't enough focus on where I needed to be at, and to get up, to get where I wanted to be. So I spoke with Bo Mac. A lot of people don't know that I actually got close with Bo Mac because around that same time, I believe, I was also in camp with Bud to help him get prepared for the Indongo Unification at junior welterweight. So that's when we formed the chemistry there. When I was helping out Bud in terms of sparring for that fight. So when I went over to Bud and Bomac, they welcomed me with open arms when I needed a new change in my corner, and we actually wanted to stay with the PBC side of things. It's just that, like I said, we just didn't have the opportunities that we wanted in terms of moving down to super featherweight. They just weren't there at the time. So that's when we had to start figuring out where I wanted to go, because at that point in time, my whole career was around, the PBC brand. So and even before then, a lot of people don't remember that, I was working closely with Golden Boy and everyone. So I started my pro debut on the Golden Boy card. So it's like I've been everywhere thanks to Al in the game, but we went over to Top Rank because, like I said, we just seen that there was more opportunities for that weight division, and that's how that came about.
We've had Bud on a couple of times, and the last time we had him on, it kind of made news when he said, he voiced his displeasure on where the kind of fights that he was getting, wanting big fights. And I asked him about staying with Top Rank, and he said, "Hey, look, my deal was coming up, and if I can't get the fights, then I'll have to make a change." Do you get a sense that he will lean towards the PBC because he feels maybe that's the way, if he's going to get the Errol Spence, the Sean Porters, is easier that way, or do you think he'll stay at Top Rank?
I think he'll do the same as I did. Like, he'll make the best career decision for him. And then at the end of the day, I always say to people, I don't really look too much into this promoter or that promoter better than that. I said, no, as a fighter, you got to look at what's best for you around your landscape. Like, for me, if you look at, the super featherweight division is basically heavy around at the Top Rank brand. And then, the PBC, you got my guy over there, Gervonta Davis. But it's not too many, you see he's potentially with the fight Mario at 140 now, because it's probably feel like there's not too many options for him at super featherweight over there. But if you're a welterweight, your best logical thing was hey, PBC got all the welterweights over here. I don't want I know, as a champion, I feel it. You don't want to be stuck with just fighting maybe mandatories that people don't know of, or people or the fans who aren't interested in. But over here, you have the Sean Porters, the Errol Spence, the Ugas, and so on and so on. So I think for Bud, at least, he's gonna weigh out things and see, what's best for him. Not just in terms of financially, because he's financially well off, but at the same time, it's okay, you want to leave your mark in boxing, but you need those fights, and that's where I'm at now. That's why I press so hard to get the Frampton fight, because it's okay, I'm a world champion, but there's so many titles floating around. People start to question, well, what have you done? Who have you fought? So I look at this, I look at that with Bud. He's gonna have to figure out, what's best for his career. But obviously, we all, it's no secret, we all want to see him and Errol fight. I told him I wouldn't even mind seeing him and Sean fight, because I love Sean Porter to death too. Sean brings out the best in anybody.
Yes,
he's gonna bring it. So you'll never see Sean in a dull fight. And he's I wouldn't even say I can't even say he's a dance partner, because Sean is is a great champion in his own right. But yeah, but the fight with Sean is good. Of course, we all know everyone's chasing the Pacquiao sweepstakes, But like I said, a lot of the welterweights is over there on PBC side. So we'll just have to wait and see.
How different of a fighter are you now that you train and obviously spar a lot with Bud Crawford?
I'm definitely a completely different fighter from what I was in 2017. Like I have more of a champion mindset when I go into camp. I have that mentality that I feel like I can pretty much beat anybody out there because I have a great team with me, and I have a Bud Crawford behind me. Even though I feel like he's always nagging me and pushing me in the gym, but I need that. It motivates me. And just like now, I plan on going out to Colorado Springs where he's at, retraining to go push him, and he respects that as well. So it's like it's more of a mutual thing. There's no. I love the fact that there's no egos involved. When he's training for a fight, that's his moment. That's his time for everybody to focus on him. And same goes for me. When he knows that I'm training for a fight, he'll come in, but he'll give me the same respect that I give him with his training camps. And it's just a great atmosphere. Like I said, every time I go into, especially with a big win that I just came off of now, when I go back to camp, I'm definitely going to feel even more confident but looking forward to bigger challenges to keep pushing me as well.
You mentioned it, last year was, man, a turbulent a year for you, for obviously for a number of people because of COVID. But your fight in July gets postponed with Okendo because you end up testing positive for COVID twice. What did that virus, how did it affect you, man? How did it affect your body?
You know what? When I had caught it the first time or whatever, it was towards the end of camp. And like towards the end of camp, you're just peaking. So I'm thinking like, I'm feeling like, from just working so hard, I'm feeling the fatigue factor from training camp. My body was aching from the body aches, but at that time I thought it was just from me just working hard in the gym. But luckily, my nutritionist, she said because she keeps notes of all my camps and how my body reacts to certain times throughout the camps, week by week. So she was like, "No, something's wrong. This is not how you normally feel." But I was like really just like, I will work hard, but when I was done, I would crash and I would just like be like just. I didn't want to do nothing. I had no appetite. I just wasn't feeling well. So I'll never forget. She made me go to go see a doctor. The very next day they gave me the call and said, I was positive for COVID-19. I said, okay, that makes sense. And then like that same night, I had broke out with the fever. So I was like, okay, I had to go. I'm in my bed, just sweating. And let me remind you, it's summertime, so I'm thinking at one point it was just hot, but like no, I was just sweating and like crazy. And I was meant to call and tell the team that we got to push the fight back. So we pushed the fight back to July, I believe it was 16th or something like that. But before I even was able to get on the plane, I had a test. So I tested negative. But when I got to Vegas the next day, boom, positive. I'm like, wow. And then it was crazy, Brian, is I went to go take another test that following morning, because I just felt something was wrong. And I tested negative. But it was like positive, negative, positive, negative. And then it was like, we'll just push the fight back to 6 weeks out. And people fail to realize I was training for that fight from the beginning of like April. Wow. And I didn't get to the ring all the way until September. And when I tested positive the first time, and they told me they would reschedule it to July 16th, people don't know I was still training like by myself. I was like, I couldn't be around anyone. I was in the gym, of course, but like Brian, I was out there running by myself with COVID just to like stay in shape, to keep my lungs open, because COVID affects the respiratory system. So I didn't want to take any chances of messing with my breathing. So I was still lightly out there running on my own to keep my lungs open and also to keep the weight down. And like I said, even when I went back in mid-July, I made the weight. I was underweight. I made the weight and everything, but it was like, oh, nope, positive again. So I had to go back. And then, like I said, it's like 6 weeks out. That's pretty much another training camp. That's pretty much a whole other training camp. So it's like, I didn't get a break in between that. And you could see it in like when I finally got to the ring that not only was my body still affected from the virus, but I probably was a little bit, well, not a little bit, I probably was overworked, overtrained up until that point. So that played a lot. But, you know, when everything came out afterwards, I just needed a break, of course. And I took that as motivation to show that, listen, this is not me. And another thing people don't know is that to this day I have not watched that fight.
Really?
I have not watched that fight. If anything, I got more of word of mouth, even though I was in there, but it looks differently when you sit back and watch your own fight. But like for the most part, I got word of mouth. Like how did that fight go? They're like, you know, champ, you know, we seen it. But I might, like, honestly, I might now after, you know, everything settled down, I might go back and watch that fight. But that's probably the only fight I've never watched. And like, listen, I watched the Dennis Shavakov fight before I watched the last fight.
and the crazy thing is because, you know, obviously that fight ended after the 8th round. You got that nasty cut and from the headbutts and you know, I know you heard from social media, people were, it looked like he didn't even want to fight in that fight. That he was happy that fight ended. He didn't even look interested in the ring. I mean, how did all of that affect you?
And you know, hey, Brian, you know, I'm big on social media, but I think that's like the one time I really had to take a break from social media because it was just hitting me left and right from all angles. And I'm like, man, I think that for the most part, I wasn't so upset with how people looked at the performance. I was more upset how they judged my character because we all know my story. We all know my background. They were questioning me as a Marine. They were saying that I was basically a disgrace to the Marine Corps. And that's what bothered me more. Like I said, because I knew it was wrong in terms of my performance. I knew it was wrong. That part didn't bother me. But I was more upset. Like people was just calling me like a quitter. I was a disgrace to the Marine Corps. I was a disgrace to my country. It was just a lot of that going, like, negativity. And it was like, and probably seen on social media. That's why when I made that statement saying that I was thinking about just leaving the sport, it wasn't so much of you know, how I performed. I was also more afraid of the long-term, long-lasting effects of the virus leaving my body. Because I'm pretty sure you see now that athletes in other sports, I've seen, were forced to retire because their bodies didn't cope well or recover fully from the virus. So I was more worried about that. And on top of that, you know, my family was just more concerned because they were actually taking the criticism a lot more heavier than I was. Me, I looked at it as it comes with boxing. Even the greats were criticized. So that part didn't really bother me, but it was bothering them more. So whether it was like, we just want you away from the sport because you giving your all to the sport and look what you're getting in return. So that was another thing that really hit me and why I made that statement early on. But, you know, when I had got the rest that I needed in the break away from just the gym and the ring for a while and started watching it again and seeing all the good fights that were being made, that's what actually sparked me to get my hunger back and be like, you know what, we gotta get this fight. I made a promise to myself that I would get this fight and I would get it done. And even with all the setbacks with the Frampton fight, I was motivated each and every day to make sure that I got in that ring and gave it my all against him.
That's great, man. That's cool. So let's talk briefly here about your story, because it is remarkable for those few who don't know it. I mean, you're former sergeant there in the Marines. You did 2 tours of duty over in Iraq. What was that like, and what kind of toll did that take on you physically and emotionally?
I mean, my first tour, I was only but 19 years old. I wasn't even old enough to even have a drink. You know, and when I went over there, I had no worries because I was still a kid, and you don't see this in America, that type of stuff in America, so you don't know what to expect. But at the same time, all you look at it as, you know, the cool action from like the movies and things like that. So like I was like more carefree, even though I was in Fallujah at the time, which is very dangerous at that point in time back in 2005. It was wild, but it just made me, it made me mature more. Because like I said, I was still young, I was still a kid. But like when I started seeing that others were depending on you over there to make it, to see the next day, that's when I started taking things a little bit more serious. But it wasn't until my second tour where I really, started appreciating just the values that we have in America and just life as a whole. Because at that time, I was expecting my first son, and I missed his birth because I was over in Iraq. And I'll never forget the story that always sticks out to me. Well, I was there, but till this day it plays in my mind. There was a sergeant. He was an EOD technician. Most people who don't know, EOD is basically like the bomb squad. So he dealt a lot with all the roadside explosives. And I'll never forget, he was giving us a class, and he was telling. I guess there was a couple of Marines that were fooling around, and he got annoyed because they weren't taking it seriously. He was like, "Listen, I'm out here every day trying to teach you guys what to look out for because I want to get home safely to my family. So I'm pretty sure you want to get home safely to your family." And he told us that he had a 2-week-old son at that point in time when he gave us that class. I'll never forget. The next week, he had lost his life to an explosion. And I looked at him like, man, this is a guy who I was just speaking to. He had a newborn son who he'll never get to meet. And here I am, I'm expecting a child of my own. So I'm like, man, this is real life. Like, this can happen to anybody. So that's when I started appreciating each and every day that I'm here on this planet, and of course, at times I got kind of like, stressed and worried and paranoid because, like I said, every day it seemed like it was like you would never get that close to that day of going home, because it's like, man, I'm out here for another at least 4 or 5 months, like, and the days are just getting longer. But when I got back, that's when I changed everything around for myself because I said, okay, now I have somebody that depends on me, and it's not a joke. So that helped me also mentally. It made me mentally stronger as well, especially with boxing. Like, I've been through it all with boxing, and I would say that boxing for me was more of a stress reliever because when I'm in the gym, I could just focus on just training, which I love. I love to train and just focus on that. All my problems are left at the door. So when I'm in the ring, even when I'm going through like a rough times in the ring, when I sit in that corner, I was thinking about like, man, there are a lot of Marines that look up to you. There are a lot of Marines that would probably do anything to be in your position right now. So don't sit here crying and complaining because it could be worse.
What about the emotional toll did it take on you, all those tours in Iraq?
It like I said, I haven't been deployed since 2007. It's 2021, and I still think about the Marines I served with. I still think about some of those rough days and nights that I were there. So it definitely still plays a toll with me today. I just learned how to cope with it a lot better because I had suffered from I was suffering from PTSD following through the years, and I just didn't know why at first. I thought I was just like being a typical Marine. I started isolating myself even during my time in my own boxing career. Like I would just stay into myself a lot, and it wasn't my family just started seeing the difference in my demeanor and attitude, and that's when I went to go get help, and that actually saved me. I believe it saved my life because I was going down the wrong. I feel like I was going down the wrong path, Brian. I felt like at one point in time I was even like close to even losing my family because I was just like pushing everybody away. And they just didn't know how to get to me. But when I actually went and got the help, it just made me, it allowed me to open up to get those emotions that I would keep tucked in and to get those emotions out. And one individual that actually motivated me to actually start speaking more about my own toll and my experience with things was Tyson Fury. When I seen that Tyson Fury was going through depression, and here's a man at a time you would think like, man, he beat Klitschko, he's the man, he's on top of the world, and the heavyweight division has always been that prestigious division in boxing. So you would think he's the king right now. But when I read and heard his story, and I was like, man, even the world, the unified heavyweight champion of the world, he's gone through depression and things of that nature. And I was like, but he opened up and showed that, he's human just like everyone else around him. That made me open up as well. Like, and I told people, that's why I tell people all the time, like, yes, you might see me on TV. Yes, I might be a world champion, but, I go through the same day-to-day, struggles that you this time, but here's how I cope with it. Here's how I deal with it. And I always said to myself, if I can help, save at least one life, I'm happy with that because I've had friends in the Marine Corps that couldn't take it, and they took their own lives, or they ended up on the wrong side where they was in trouble after trouble, and things like that. So for me, if I can get out there with my free time and speak to troops all over, and just let them know like, hey, I'm here for you. Like I know how you feel. I've been there. That's what really matters to me. So that's why I carry the name Number 5, which means always faithful, in the Marine Corps, and I still carry myself as a Marine to this day.
I think that's what, and probably why so many people connect with you and have so much, like myself, have so much respect for you. Also, I mean, 2009, you suffered one of the worst tragedy I think any parent could have, and your daughter ends up dying of SIDS. Did that? You think that was one of the things that when you talked about the clinical depression, is that what aided that? You think?
Of course, definitely. I remember even as an amateur, I was still boxing. I wasn't even I remember when that happened. I didn't want to even see a gym. I didn't want to see anything. I just felt like I had no motivation to go on to do anything. But I had I had great Marines and family around me. I remember, I never forget it. I got the call from my old coach, Robert Michael, who I actually speak to this day. My first Marine Corps coach trainer, and he said, "Listen, champ." He said, "Listen, I know you're going through a lot, but we need you. We need you here as a brother, and we need you here as a leader." And that's basically what got me back up and running again. And as you see to this day, when you look at my trunks, I carry my daughter's name on my trunks because I look at her as I took something like a negative situation like that, and I turned it into a positive with my own spiritual belief. And I look at her as my guardian angel. And that's why, she's another reason why I stay on the right path. Because I always say to myself, if I do this, how would she look at me? Like, nah, she wouldn't approve of that. She wouldn't approve of that. So she, it's like that, that conscious level on my shoulder. Like she's over. I feel like she's always there watching over me. So like, and like I said, it's funny that you asked that because I just had to deal with another Marine who went through the same experience. But I reached out, I just and it's not easy because to this day I still think about her each and every day.
Yeah.
But if you can just give a few words of encouragement and signs of hope that you can still make it in life and move forward, doesn't mean you have to forget. That helps a lot of people. But for my daughter, I put it on my each and every on my trunks, and it's funny. I won my first world title on her birthday. On her 10th, it would have been her 10th birthday. So I'm like, everything happens for a reason. And I'm like, I don't believe in coincidence and things of that nature. So, I mean, that's what drove me. Like, just her memory drove me to be not only a better fighter, but a better person in life.
Man, that's great. That's great, Jamel. How many more years do you think you'll fight?
I went to the school of Bernard Hopkins. I believe in you take care of yourself. You take it. Like I said, I don't look the 35 role right now, but I believe, like I said, I love the sport. I take it very seriously. That I always tell myself, you can't play boxing, but you have to live it. So that means when the cameras aren't rolling, you still have to take care of yourself out of the gym as well as you train hard inside the gym. So for me, Brian, I just look at it like I just take it one. Right now, I'm taking it one fight at a time, but I still want the next big thing, and so on and so on. As long as I can keep up with it, and which I really feel like I can, because I said I felt great my last fight. I can go on as long as possible. I don't want to look into like my 40s, of course, like B Hop did, but at the same time, I'm just enjoying it, and I feel great and I love it. And luckily for me, people don't realize also, I started the sport actually kind of late. Like I was about 15, 16 years old. And then because of my Marine Corps career, I had to take, of course, breaks from boxing, of course. And when I went to the Olympics, I only had only 96 amateur fights. And
Wow.
guys like my brother Rashid Warren, he had 300 fights,
Yes.
and the average was at least around that time 200 fights, on the team. And here I am, I had less than 100 fights, so I don't have wear and tear on my body as other fighters do. So I believe as long as I take care of myself and just keep living right, I can go as far as I possibly want to.
Well, Champ, for everyone who comes on the show, we allow people who listen, who watch, to submit questions. We got a number of them for you, so we'll just get to a few. You mentioned it, and one guy who also tweeted at us and you was Shakur Stevenson. So he said, quote, on Twitter, "I'm going to be in Colorado, so why don't you give Bomac, who's obviously your trainer, my belt, and he can give it to me, or you want to ship it to me? You can send it to my P.O. box." What's your response?
My response to that is, hey, listen, I'll be in Colorado as well, because I know Shakur is going to go out there to not only train but support Bud. But I'm coming to get that. I want to come and get that P.O. box personally. I want to. That's me. So, like, I'll be out there too, but I don't, I just want the FedEx. I don't plan on going back to mail anything out anytime soon.
I love it. This one on Twitter, and it says, when do you feel you will be ready to challenge for those other belts?
I feel like I'm ready now. I mean, there's no need to wait or procrastinate. I mean, if I can get back in training camp by the summertime and fight before fall, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm ready. Like I said, I definitely want to fight Oscar Valdez. Hopefully we can do it by September.
Nice. This one also from Twitter, it says, Champ, what advice would you give to someone who hasn't had their first amateur fight yet?
The main thing I'll tell them is to listen to your corner. Your corner has got you prepared. Your team has got you prepared for that moment. So you have to believe, and not only in yourself, but believe in your team that they're going to lead you on the right path. So just basically implement everything that you worked on leading up to that fight. And that's with every fight. I mean, even me as a champion, I still do the same thing with my team. We work on the game plan. We have that, we built that trust amongst each other, and we're going into it as a team. So just, believe in your team and believe in yourself, and you'll be all right.
All right, Jamel Herring, it's time for the last segment of this show. We call it The Last Stand. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. You give me the first thing that comes to your mind, champ. You ready?
Right, I'm ready.
Here we go. Serious question. What was a tougher battle for you? The 2 tours in Iraq, as you pointed out, the PTSD, or the clinical depression? Which one was the tougher battle?
The PTSD. Because, like I said, one day I could be feeling great. The next day I could just be in like the worst shape or mood, and that's rough, because you're not only hurting yourself, but you're hurting the people around you. And I think I took that a lot harder, seeing that it was affecting the people that I loved around me.
First thing that comes to your mind when I say the name Colin Kaepernick?
Revolutionary type of dude. It's crazy. It's funny that that people were complaining about what he was doing, and then it got worse. He started seeing, and then people were looking like, oh, why can't we be? They do peaceful protests. Like, well, they've tried. I mean, Colin, he tried. Silently also, but they drug him down. But I bet they wish that it was like that now. But nah, I mean, a lot of respect for Colin Kaepernick. I'm actually upset that he's the way he was treated, but I believe that years down the road, people will look back and they'll give him his proper due respect.
And the irony is how people always talk about, is for some, that fake love for people like yourself who serve this country. And yet we just seen recently how those police officers, it was a lieutenant, and they pulled him out and maced him.
I mean, I looked like this also when they, same thing with Colin Kaepernick. They kept the Blue Lives Matter, and look how they treated the officers at the Capitol. So I mean, I think people just use certain things to shield what how they really feel, but the truth always comes to light.
Yeah, you're right. Greatest fighter who went from military to becoming a boxer: Joe Louis, Jack Dempsey, Rocky Marciano.
Brian Bowman. I mean, listen, somebody's gonna pull out the Coming to America joke.
Rocky Marciano, you did beat Joe Louis's ass.
But, I mean, Joe Louis at the time wasn't just a great boxer; it's what he represented during that time. And I always look at what people do outside the ring as well as they do inside the ring. And what he represented, especially for for our for the Black community at that time, was big. And not to mention that he gave up a lot to look out for others. And it's kind of sad to this day how he was treated afterwards with his life outside the ring. But he's one of the greatest, one of the greatest people, not fighters, but people to put on a pair of gloves, in my opinion.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Now they're getting good. Best current world champion to come out of Long Island. Jamel Herring or Errol Spence Jr.
Hey, listen, Errol, we got into it already, Errol. You were born in Long Island, Errol. Okay, what they say in Texas. I love your family in Long Island too. I know them down there in Long Island, but since you don't want to claim it, I will claim the title of being the best active fighter from Long Island. I don't want anyone from Dallas to complain about that.
Right. Errol does that. He does have a different story when he fights in Brooklyn. Exactly. It's like, yeah, my New Yorkers. Yeah. You're right. I love it. Okay, here we go. Most talented fighter on that 2012 Olympic team.
Okay.
Errol Spence Jr.
Yeah.
Clarissa Shields. Or Jamel Herring.
It's rough. I'm taking myself out of that one. If I gotta split it, I have to give it. Clarissa, you're doing a phenomenal job for women's boxing. Yeah, I mean, not only inside the ring, but I see what you're pushing for outside the ring. So we gotta give you respect for that. And that was a no-brainer. Like between Errol and maybe Jose Ramirez, those were the two guys that people were really talking about a lot coming out of that class. But I'm just glad to see a lot of the class, my friends from that class doing well. Like I've seen Terrell just had a great performance against my good friend Javante Clark. I'm looking forward to see my brother Marcus Brown getting back into the ring. Rashid Warren just came up with another win. So bro, it's still my team. I got love for everybody, but Errol was probably that top dog that came out of the team.
All right. Listen, you obviously on that team, coolest person you met at the Olympics.
Coolest person I met at the Olympics on that team?
Or no, just, when you were there at the Olympics, you were like, "Wow, man, I just met such and such, and this was great."
No, man, God rest his soul. I got to meet Kobe. I met Kobe. Real laid back dude.
And loves fighting. He loves fighting. He loved boxing.
We lost a great one, but I got to meet Kobe Bryant. So I'll probably say that's. I mean, not because he's a legend and he's gone, but no, he was actually a lot cooler. People try to portray him on in the media. So, but yeah, Kobe and LeBron, they were real laid back and cool.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Listen, champ, I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I really appreciate you taking the time and spending some time with us here on The Last Stand.
Oh yeah, I gotta come back, Brian. Like
absolutely. Hey, you listen. If you unify, we gotta have you on to talk about it.
Oh yeah, I'll be back. I appreciate you though.
I love it. Hey, listen, that's what we do here, folks. We bring you the biggest names in the sport, and none bigger than the champ himself, Jamel Herring. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week.